Hello, everyone. Um, this is the first time I'm going to be doing PRs for the NPBA. Joe decided to be lazy this season and make someone else do it, so uh, I'm actually going to be joined here by TheHelixFossil. If you'd like to say hi,
What up?
we'll be doing PRs for Johto. I have no idea if we're going to be doing it for Kanto as well. Don't ask me yet. I don't know, but we're at least doing it for Johto, because Johto's special treatment and all that.
Johto is the best division. That is true.
It's obviously the best division, regardless if we're playing it or not. But regardless, so we are ranking these teams regardless of what their current record is. We don't really know how the games have been going, and we're just talking objectively about the team compositions themselves. Also, we'll be only ranking 15 teams as there was a drop kind of right as we were recording this. So we don't really know what their full team was. So we decided just to exclude that team altogether. Just assume that that team is somewhere in the future. You can kind of pinpoint it based off the other teams. So if you'd like to do that. Without further
Yep.
ado,
Just
oh, go
just
ahead.
remember it's. I would say just remember it's PRs. They don't mean anything. It's just for fun. Don't get too
They
upset if
mean
we have your team at
absolutely
last and you
nothing.
think it's great.
Yeah, they mean
Yeah.
absolutely nothing other than the fact that you're bad at Pokemon.
Last place is always best place because then you can't do worse. So,
Exactly.
uh,
And speaking of last place, who we have up first is indeed the Lake Valor Luxrays and Shines being the coach. This is our current last place team. So Helix, can you explain what the glaring weaknesses are for this team?
yeah. One thing with this before we get going, we should have mentioned is the dock is not 100% updated, so you may see some things with mons that have defog or rapid spin, kind of some key things that they don't actually have in our post Paldea home decks. So just remember that. This team is just the only removal is Mousehold. I mean, I love Tidy Up; it is great, but then you also only have three pivot mons and really two hazard setters. And I don't know how often you're going to run toxic spikes on Reverum and you're forcing rocks every single time on Mudsdale. And then for me, I thought you had some pretty good Terra choices in Breloom, Reverum, honestly, Regidrago and Mudsdale. And then you went Luxray, which isn't bad, but I think we both agreed you could have gone somewhere else.
Yeah, Luxray arguably is probably the worst option, other than Cricketune for your Terra users. Um, it like Breloom, Riveroom, and like Regidraco all have extremely good offensive and defensive pressure with Terra, whereas Luxray has Guts Facade, and that's what it's got. Uh,
Play rough, but yeah, it's not. I mean, I love the Breloom. Obviously, it's the team mascot for me, but it's kind of tough here. So I don't want to spend too much time on it. Obviously, you do have some great pieces. I think Chin Pao is going to be fun to use. Sylveon's always useful. Armarouche is pretty fun, and I really want to see how Basque Legion female does here. But
yeah,
otherwise, did not think it was a very strong team.
yeah. This team definitely has some pieces. Like Chin Pao is extremely strong. This team has a lot of priority with Chin Pao and Breloom, and I'm pretty sure Basculin gets Aqua Jets, but this team definitely suffers from just missing identity. This team also uh, it it can't really fight defensively, especially because Terra doesn't really help you. And this team offensively is extremely pressured by having very predictable sets. Arguably, every single one mon on this team isn't threatening until it's set up, aside from maybe Chin Pao. Um, so that is something to keep in mind as well. Is that this team really, really needs extra turns, and it doesn't get a lot of extra turns. It doesn't really have enough pivots, and it's getting chipped down the entire game. So that's kind of why we believe this is the worst team.
Oh, uh,
Uh, Anything
all
else you'd
right.
like to say about this team?
No, I think we'll move on.
All right. Well, then, moving on, our second weakest team, in our opinion, so far, is the High Pook um, piloted team. The team name being the Greenwood Rillabooms. This team is very fat, I'll give you that much. With Dondozo and Bronzon and Cloudsire and Blissey, like this team is extremely hard to break. Like two unaware mons, definitely means that this team you can't really set up against them, which means you're forced to use just brute force in your breakers. And they can bounce a lot. Bronzong and Dondozo are really hard to break defensively. Blissey and Cloudsire are really hard to break, especially defensively. But then you start looking at the offensive potential of this team, and it's almost all on the back of Excalibur. You can't bring all four walls unless I mean you could, but if you do, that means your offensive pressure is 2 months. And yes, Dondozo could go curse, and it could do its curse shenanigans, but like obviously taunt is a thing that would be annoying. Obviously, I do believe Oblivious. No, Oblivious isn't immune to taunt. That's I forget what other ability that is, but so like obviously that could be something annoying as well, and but like the rest of this team has weird identity issues. Like you have two defoggers at least. There is one demon here, especially that has like literally no removal. But I mean, you got removals in Decidueye and Halucha. Halucha seems like an odd choice. It seems like you just really wanted something faster than 111. Um, and a fast defog is like okay, but like it's I don't know if it's really necessary, especially with Moldbreaker. Espathra is Espathra. I mean, you can speed boost, calm mind, set up all you want. But yeah, I feel like this team has some interesting decisions for drafting, in the sense of uh, other than fat, what is your game plan? This team really heavily relies on hoping that your team doesn't have someone that can break them, which when you draft a team that just hopes the other team didn't draft well, I don't think that's a good game plan moving forward.
Yeah, this team to me is just taunt fodder. It's fat, and that's great at some point, but you're someone's clicking taunt. Any setup mon with taunt is gonna have, I think, a field day on this one. Don Don Bozo with first pick though, it looks like, so that was kind of funny. So props to you on that one. I hope it works out, but yeah, it just doesn't seem to have a lot going for it. I mean, Halucha without terrain seems a little odd unless you were really worried about that Goldango uh, defog. But
Yeah, which I mean, if you're worried about Goldingo defog, I mean your defogger is both good and bad against the Goldingo. I mean you do have priority, so like you could catch him off guard, but it's definitely interesting overall. At least your pivot's nice.
yeah, it does have very good pivots. You're not probably running U-turn very much on a Spartha or a Spathra or whatever.
True, probably not.
All right.
But if you don't have anything else, then we'll go on to our next team, which is piloted by Shandy, and the name is being the Phantoms of PBA. And this team, if you look to the right of the unique moves and whatnot, this team is a Baron for both removal and for hazards.
Yeah, this one hurts because Salazzle, aka Old Greg, is one of my favorite draft mons ever, and I'm really interested to see how it does as Terra, especially because Nasty Plot does
True.
do a ton of damage
Yeah.
after using it, and then I do think Doc's Bun was way underpriced at 5,
Extremely underpriced
but
at 5.
but I think after just looking at it, there's no. I prefer bulky water. I think it helps a ton. It doesn't seem to really be anything here. You're relying on Corviknight every time to run defog, which means losing you're losing any ability to set up body press shenanigans. Um, you have to run, then you're running U-turn, roost, defog. then maybe body press, Iron Head, Brave Bird, whatever you're thinking. But it takes up a slot on something that can be used elsewhere. Um, it just seems odd to me. I didn't love it. I didn't like the lack of removal, and I didn't like the lack of options for a hazards heavy meta.
Yeah, with the hazard heavy meta being Krookodile as your rocker, he's not tanky enough to really be a consistent rocker. He almost feels like he's going to be a suicide lead half the time. I mean, yeah, with intimidate and some bulk, he can take hits, but he doesn't really facilitate that very well. Um, this team also just seems odd with what they decided to double up on. I mean, you have double water, but neither are bulky. You have double dark, or actually, you have triple dark, um, and your ghost type is poltergeist. Not exactly a mon that wants to switch into your fighting types, like at all. Um, Dashbon is literally your only fighting type to resist that is bulky in the slightest,
Oh,
which just feels like it could even be a like more of a problem for you. This team's biggest strength is that everyone can pivot. That is this team's biggest strength whatsoever. And with Zorark, you could probably get away with like baiting in some slower mons, pivot in, and like eventually breaking them. I feel like that's the only thing this team could get away with. But this team is definitely going to have a rough time against most teams. I feel.
no, yeah, I think so.
Also, for those listening, Helix thankfully doesn't have to hear most of it, but obviously on OBS, my mic will pick up a little bit more than Discord will. I am still recovering, so you'll hear my voice kind of go like a little in and out with hoarseness, and if you hear me sniffling or coughing, I do apologize in advance. I do try to turn away when it happens. Um, but otherwise, let's continue. And next we have JCJ of the Long Island Iced Tea Tars. I do like me some iced tea, but I'm not
Great logo.
exactly.
Great
Yeah. Oh
logo.
yeah. Great logo, and
Oh.
great start of the draft. Like the top four, amazing. That is a really solid core, and then things fell off.
Yeah, without Dirge without Terra will be interesting. I still think it's a good mon. Unaware is nice here. I do worry a little bit about being weak to ground there. I know you have the Lando, which is going to come every week, but you know, your Steel type, Skeledirge, a lot of your bulk there, and then Iron Hands all weak to ground. Bundle is fantastic. Just hit your hydro pumps. You'll probably be okay. But this is kind of the point where the teams we didn't think were really rough per se anymore, but maybe just some were better in some other areas.
Yeah, this is definitely the start of the teams that are definitely scary. I think the teams beforehand had to really have to come up with more unique and or long term strategies to become threatening. This is the start of the draft where there are just mons where you're going to have to overprep for. Like obviously being Iron Bundle Cyclozar, Shed Tail into Iron Bundle, Free Switch, he's killing something or he just flips right back out. Like the core of Cyclozar bundle in Lando is so extremely threatening and just potent. They could just keep you turning around until eventually your mons that probably don't have recovery and they can just start hitting buttons. But
Uh,
I do think it's just a funny little quirk about this team is that they have two flying types and neither actually have coverage for flying moves.
yeah. I
I
mean,
think that's a fun quirk.
Gyarados. I think is a fantastic Terra type captain.
Extremely scary. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you get one or two, you get one D dance up, then a Moxie, or you intimidate in, and then get maybe two boost up, and can kind of run through on a you know normally ground, but you, mind games start coming into it. So I think that'll be kind of good to see, and it'll be fun to watch. I mean, I love Persian Alola. I think parting shot's great, but that speed there between Alola, Persian Alola, and slacking, where you have it kind of goes 121 to 91.
Yeah, it's fake speed.
I don't think slacking's coming very often, and I don't think Persian Alola is gonna make it very often. I do think parting shot is obviously arguably one of the best moves in the game.
Yeah, party shot
But
is extremely like really good, and it does have fur coat. So like, if there's a matchup where he just needs a defensive tank that Lando can't handle, like maybe a physical ice type or something similar, like a Persian could be there.
I mean, I think I would rather go Dirge,
Yeah,
but
I mean, I would also rather Dirge, so I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I
it's the
guess a
dark type.
physical water type or a physical dark type maybe
Yeah,
is what you would go for Persian, but regardless, Persian did lose knockoff, so like it also doesn't have toxic, so it's got like T wave in Burning Shot, and that's
right.
kind of its utility. So
And this only has one removal too
yeah,
with
it's just
Rapids.
Cyclozar.
And yeah, and I mean how I guess I've never really messed around with Cyclozar, but I guess it's probably a
It's
pretty fitting move
It's
after
its
Shed
standard
Skin
set. Yeah,
or
literally,
Shed Skin. Okay,
Cyclozar's like literally runs like four moves. It runs Rapid Spin, U turn, Knock Off, and Shed Tail, and it runs that every week, and it doesn't have to run anything else. Maybe you
righteous.
run Draco if you want some chip, or overheat against like a Scizor, but that's really it. Really, like literally, Cyclozar has one job and one job only:
Yeah, it's to pass the tail.
pass the
Okay.
tail and knock off things that it can't Shed Tail or Rapid Spin on. That's basically it. But but yeah, this is definitely the start of the teams that like are still scary, but they have weaknesses that teams can exploit. And
Yeah.
speaking of weaknesses that teams can exploit, the next team we have is Gentleman Thomas's team with the Copenhagen Galids. Another
Yeah, our
team,
resident YouTuber here.
yeah, the resident streamer. Sorry for being so low, but I mean, it's the same old story with only having one Rapid Spinner, except it's not Rapid Spin, it's Mortal Coil. So you get walled by Steel types instead of Ghost types, which I feel like is worse.
Yeah, I will say though, at least Glamora can pressure it out with a pretty nasty Earth power. Um,
True.
but it's and you mean corrosion is some fun shenanigans with Mortal Spin. Hit poisoning things and then. But yeah, the obvious thing is the Goldango Glamora combo. And it feels like infinite um, hazards up. Like it's just gonna be tough. And then even if Goldango goes down, if he makes a good play with a Zapdos Scalar to pick up the boost on a defog, um, that's gonna suck.
Yeah,
Like
like
that's just the worst.
this team is definitely going to be interesting because like it's got great hazards, and Quagsire and Gamora having the whole ring of three, um, like they're one of them comes every week, and they're gonna have some hazards, and with Goldigo obviously you get some defog support, but like another thing this team like kind of really suffers of is that its weaknesses it does not cover very well. It is like an ice weakness, which Arcanine is really consistent and Golden Go is like here and there, but Ghost and Dark Week almost only being Iron Jugulus. Iron Jugulus resists both,
Ghost is so spammable
and
too.
Ghost is so spammable. And when Golden Go is one of your top mons, and it's weak to ghosts, it's a bit rough. It's definitely a bit rough because that means Golden Go doesn't really want to switch into that, and nothing on this team realistically wants to switch into it. It's interesting because this team is bulk is literally Quagsire, Appleton, and then whatever Terra type Arcanine goes into, which most of the time it wants to go offensive. It wants to go extreme speed. It does not want to have to be stuck being an Intimidate Morning
Pound,
Sun
yeah,
wall.
Poundstone's got some bulk, but I don't think it's
It's
coming a
not
ton.
coming.
Not a lot, but yeah, I think Arcanine is obviously a really strong Terra Captain if you want to go offensively, especially with E speed, or if you want to go defensively, maybe switch it to I don't know water or fairy something.
Or just dark. This team could really
Yeah,
use a better dark type
that's
defensively.
true. It has crunch. I'm
I mean,
pretty
it's
sure.
got stab
Yeah,
if it
so
really
it's
needs
good.
it.
I mean, this is by no means, I think, a bad team. Like we said, I just think,
Exactly.
I think, as you noticed, Johto per usual did a pretty good job drafting, especially considering the board. So why don't we move on to the next one here?
Yeah, like overall for these teams, like aside from, I would argue the bottom two, I think like there is a giant uh, grouping from like the third last to roughly like sixth or seventh place where they're roughly all the same equalness of strength, where they have some really good highs, but they have some pretty good lows as well. Which means that just this meta of Gen 9 is extremely hard to draft in when you're full 16. It's really really hard even post home. There's like removal is like a hot commodity, and it's the teams who are able to still get a good team out of it are definitely the ones that have been doing it for a long time. But
Oh yeah.
either way, this next team, Aaron the Baron, Colchester. I don't fully know how to pronounce this correctly. I'm gonna guess it's Colchester Cobalions, but God, this team looks so pretty. If it had removal,
Yeah,
ah,
no removals rough. Unless we're just absolutely missing something, I'm pretty sure there's no removal left
nah,
on this
not
team.
none of this team. Like I feel like this team made a change and we just forgot to like change it or something.
It may have, I put together this PowerPoint like a week and a half ago, I think. But I mean, this team has some fun toys. Lando, Annihilate, Greninja, Protom, Boom. Honestly, Dragalge's not fun to switch in on if you aren't really prepared for it. Lycanroc Dusk is always a good time, and I mean, it does a lot. It's just with all the pivoting the team has to not be able to remove those hazards that can kind of really cripple you. I think that's kind of why this team wasn't higher. I think we both agreed if you dropped maybe one or two of these pieces and swapped it over right away to get some sort of hazard removal, you would have shot way up.
Yeah, like honestly, I this team would be easily contention of the top three if it just
Yep.
had removal. Like literally, the only reason why it's here is because removal. I think
Yep.
prepping for this team is going to be really weird because this team it just has a timer. Obviously, heavy duty boots is a thing, so this team can just kind of ignore half of like that of weakness altogether if it gives up an item, which some of these mons easily can. Rotom Heats, Greninja, Annihilate can very easily run heavy duty boots, but like
You give up a
it's
lot when you have
you
to
do
do
have
that.
to give up a lot, which is like it's one of those things where it's a weakness where if you're going to be able to draft this well of a team, I would say the weakness is okay, but it immediately makes your team on a timer.
Yep.
For every single switch that you make is literally costing you time and health, and there's not natural recovery on any of these mons. No recovers, no roosts, no nothing. So aside from Grassy Surge and lefties, every little bit of chip counts.
Grassy Surge does help a little bit, obviously, but not it's not offsetting multiple stacks. So I think the last thing we should touch on for this one, because this is a good team at its core. Offensively, it's so scary. It's just we both think probably should have gone Rillaboom
Yeah,
for Terra
Rillaboom
Captain.
Terra, Rotom Terra is also really good. Like Rotom Terra is good. Rillaboom Terra is like amazing. I think being able to go acrobatics, with Grassy Surge and the Seed and Sword Stance, like it's super hard to switch into that. Um,
Oh yeah,
but like
I
just just not Dragalge. Like even Tinkaton with Zangoose would have been better in my opinion. Just
yeah.
I don't agree with the Gojo. I get it. The 2.5 adaptability is very tempting, but Dragalge is just not that mon.
Well, it just seems like it is so slow that you aren't getting a ton
Value,
of
yeah.
those nukes in. Um, But yeah, I love the Zangoose one. Honestly, I think I just don't know how often you're gonna bring it.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
if
like, this team has so many threats that, like, what team would you rather not just have Annihilate or Landorus or Rillaboom if it was Terra? Like, it's, I don't know. This team is extremely scary, and I really hope they make that change to get some removal, and then they'd be good.
Yep. All right. Next one is it
Next one
Cam?
is, yes, Bad Guy Cam at the Salt Lake Cedra. This team is weird. It's scary, but it's weird. I think you should start with this one,
I think Sneasler's great, man. I think it's so.
Helix.
I really like the Sneasler. It's just honestly, Unburden and Poison Touch both are incredibly useful. Just it's fast U-turn 130 is pretty high attack. I think its coverage is really good. Not much really wants to come in on this. I mean,
It's basically
it's got
it's Weavile if Weavile was a fighting poison type. This is
yeah.
what
I mean,
Toxicroak should have been.
it's but in this gen, it's so I think it's better than Weavile right now. Just the
Oh,
Unburden Poison
easily.
Touch. It doesn't. I mean, no triple axle, or we can get into that. But Dire Claw is. I just played it. Dire Claw put my Slowbro to sleep. I thought I lost. It's a nightmare, just hacks wise to deal with. And then I do think he kind of enables it too, with the Fortress being able to get spikes up so that it's just easier to sweep with an Unburden. Poison Touch really just weakening those mons down. I mean, then you just go right from there. It's the monster that is Tinglu. Feels like it never dies. You can run the same set every week and it's still effective. Enamorous is really tough to knock down. No recovery on it, I think, is kind of annoying other than Draining Kiss, but it's still really tough. Mence is always a good mon. Arcanine Hisui's a pretty solid threat with Head Smash,
Yeah, Head Smash,
whatever it
Flare
is.
Blitz, Rockhead,
Yep.
and it still hits extreme speed, so like if it really needs to, it can still hit other mons. It still has got other coverage like close combat, and it's just like I mean, yeah, it's not a great defensive typing, but it hits
Right.
like a truck, and
Yep.
at 90 speed, it basically guarantees that it will outspeed most Scarfers, since
I
usually
mean,
Scarf Heaven is usually around the like 85 kind of range.
yeah, it's a really I think it's a really just balanced team and all, and I think Hoopa has a potential to be a really um, tough
Scary Terra, yeah.
Terra to deal with. I think Grafai could be really good. I think it kind of serves kind of the similar purpose of Sneasler, spreading poison, but then again, you do have Prankster and you can
Prankster
parting shot.
Encore is really something that Griffith does, really shutting down any setup team like really hard. That team beforehand that was taunt heavy, Griffith also having I'm pretty sure it has both taunt and encore, so it would probably come to that game. It's also one of the premier knockoff users, which we all know is also another hot commodity
Yeah.
overall. Um, it's fast. It's got parting shots. So prankster parting shots. So it's like a really good support mon overall.
It is. It does have acrobatics. I would like to have seen somebody make this their Terra captain and just try to get
And just
a
go
kind of
offensive with
cheese sweep with
acrobatics.
it. But yeah, this team's good. I mean, it's just a very good overall team. I think the Hisui was Electrode Hisui was just added as the Terra because it had 3 points. I
It's
don't
got three
think it.
points, and like realistically, it could still pretty hit hard with Terra. Like
Yeah.
realistically, like sub seed with Terra, it could be a defensive like annoyance. And like just imagine a sub seed mon that just is now a steel type.
Yeah. I mean,
It's basically Celesteela without its flying type at that point.
yeah, it's one of those mons too that I'm interested to see. First time I've really people have been forced to kind of draft it just because of the small pool. So it's one of
Yeah.
those I'm really interested to see how it does. So I think I'll be watching some of Cam's games for sure. Cam, make those
Agreed.
videos again.
True. Yeah, I'd love to see that. That sounds like a lot of fun.
All right.
Um,
We'll go on to the
yep.
next one.
So next one we do have is Liger with the Wikato Chestnuts, and this is the point where Cam was the beginning of it. I forgot to mention, but this is really the point of like these are the good teams. Like this is like where like we're only like halfway through, but like this is like really like where the good teams really start to shine. The only reason why they're down here is because we got to put someone below the top. So you'll start seeing like these teams, and you're kind of asking yourself, how is it this low? It's because there's teams that just are even better, but these are still really solid teams. And starting off strong with the Terra Lucario, extremely scary extreme speed user. Um, One of only two, I think, Terra available extreme speed users in Arcanine and Lucario. Both really scary. Lucario is slightly scarier because it gets Sword Stance. I don't believe Arcanine does. Um, so, I mean, yeah. And plus, that's not even including the rest of the party on this team of Palafin being Palafin and, Clefly getting Prankster for priority. Cinderace just being Cinderace also has Sucker Punch if it needs it. And I think this team is just really good. I think all of its mons are good. Everything has a reason to come to a game. It's really scary.
Yeah, is Kamala the only? I
Yeah,
think Kamala is
that
now
is
the
the
only.
defog. It does look rough. It looks like you have a lot, but you don't. They all lost it. It's only Kamala as your removal, which really does rough. Cinderace does have court change, so you technically have two,
Right.
but that's probably one of the only reasons why we have it even this low, is because your removal isn't the best, and
Yeah, I
you
do.
really only have rocks as well.
Lots of ground weaknesses, but at the same time, he does have 3 immunities and Cinderace, changing type, so it may not always be there. But yeah, this team's really good. Lucario's Terra Captain I'm pretty sure it still has Nasty Plot, right?
Yep, it gets Nasty Plot and
Yeah,
Sword
Nasty
Stance
Plot and
and
Sword Stance. I
Agility
mean,
and
yeah.
everything it
I
wants.
mean, for me, that's what I look for in the Terra Captain is just the ability to, especially the setting up 2 ways. It's kind of you could lose the game instantly on the wrong guess on a Terra or the wrong guess if it's Sword Stance or Nasty Plot. So I think this is a good team. I think Knackle mini house there and the mini Garg is really good with Violet. I think it's gonna be I think it may come to more games than people realize. So interested to see how that one does. I think it's a good team.
Yeah, I mean, in my low tier draft or low tier league that I play, Narcoseckle just got a 5-0 just because they
Hmm.
couldn't break it. Like they literally had no mon that could break the mon. Like it's like he's still just as tanky and just as threatening in higher tiers. Um, I think people really forget the fact that you can't toxic kick, uh, you can't like status it. So unless your T spike's already up, so like it's really really annoying and hard to break.
Oh.
But either
I
way,
mean, it also has a Moongus, which
yeah,
is
it
just
also has a Mungus too.
the
So
worst.
like,
That's all I want to say is just the worst. It's just the worst. So let's uh, let's just
yeah.
go to the next one.
Yeah, this team it's definitely very scary, but there's ones that are just slightly better. And speaking of slightly better, we do have Pro Shuriken in the Midwestern Moltres. Also a really dope logo. I like the hat. I think it's
Yeah,
nice.
it's a good one. This team is scary. I
This
think
team is
it's
pretty nutty. Not gonna lie.
Valiant clicks buttons. I mean, Slow King, Glow King is just a free swap into something.
How did he get these top three? How in the world did he get Valiant, Slowking, Galler, Chomp in this
Well,
meta?
someone drafted Don Bozo
That's
first,
a
so
good
that
point. When you first make Don Dozo, you got teams like this that get away with murder in their top three.
uh,
And they get an
I think
Earthworm to Shed Tail to it too, and just
it's a good team. I
Cleavor is
think
extremely consistent, and it's just
yeah,
like
it's a really good rocker. The rock setting is so good on Cleaver. You don't need to really run it on anything else just because the move is so effective.
true. Which I mean,
Um,
he's got plenty of consistent rockers too. I mean, Earthworm is really consistent, Garchomp's really consistent, but now you can have a Garchomp Suicide Lead with just spikes, and you can go more offensive. You don't have to die to get both up now, and it's nice. Bramogast is really good for a cheap rapid spinner. Samurai has like the thing is that this team got both hazard offensive setters, both of them, both
yep.
Stone Axe and Ceaseless Edge. So this team never stops for a second to keep up the pressure while still doing
Well,
damage. I think that's
and yeah, the
really.
boosted sharpness. Like,
Yeah, I
I don't
think
know.
this team is so scary. The one thing this team extremely is rough on is that its special pressure is very close knit. It is Kilowattrel and Slowking, and that's it. Kilowattrel
Yeah,
still hits decent enough, 105, and it's fastest spawn, so it's still a threat, but you know
I
it's
mean, Valiant can still smack around with a Moonblast.
true. It's
It's
definitely probably going to be more running more special than physical, but like it's still, kind of just how it goes. Um,
Kilowatt roll. I'm telling you, is as I've been using it. I think it's a lot. I mean, eight for an 8 point mon. I think it's a lot of value just with the immunity. Also, I if he can catch a defog or a parting shot or intimidate on a day with competitive, that mon can run through with the speed and just a little offensive pressure if it
oh
hits a
yeah,
hurricane. But I think this is a really tough team to prep for. Just the constant, it doesn't have a lot of really. It's got chilling, reception, then U-turn, and then volt turn on Kilowattrel. So it doesn't have a lot of pivot, but the mons that do pivot, I think, are pretty strong and useful and could come almost every week.
agreed. Yeah, like this very reliable team. I think one of the only weaknesses you can really point out to is that this team has low pivot. It's only got 2 months, but well, I guess you could argue. Actually, no. I mistake myself because it's just not listed. Slowkey Galler's got Chilling Reception and Earthworm's got Shed so it doesn't even
That's
have low
four.
pivot. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's up to 4. Which I mean, you could argue that Orthworm is a limited pivot, like you can only really do it once or twice, but that's more than enough, especially when you get past a substitute. So yeah, this team is
Um,
extremely scary.
yeah, I like this team. I think it's gonna Pro Shuriken's,
Yeah,
he's good too.
yeah.
I think he'll pilot it well.
Agreed. So next we have coming up, we're getting close to our top 3. But we have Bum and his Montreal Mar Cactus team. This is another team that, like, goodness, it's so scary and hard to prep for. This team has the opposite of what the last team was, where they're just everything is offensively scary. This team is everything is defensively scary. Really hard to break.
Yeah, I think the big difference between this and the previous heavy defensive team is there's a lot more threats with the defensiveness of this team. With Roaring Moon is bulky, and threatening. Just not doesn't do a ton, but it still has 112 special attack. Like it you don't really want to catch a unresisted moon blast from it.
Yeah.
Garganackle is just
Garganacles, Salt
it's
Cure, and
great.
Body Press is enough.
I know Pex got kind of nerfed pretty
Tex
hard
did
this
get
gen,
neutered. Yeah, Pex
but
did
it's
get neutered.
still really annoying. And then obviously, Gudra Hisui is, I think, a fantastic mon. I probably wouldn't have had it as Terra just because I think your best option for me would have been Heracross or maybe
Typhlosion and
Typhlosion and
Dunsparce.
Dunsparce.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, probably can't go wrong just flipping it straight to Steel and hitting an Iron Head, or I'm pretty sure it gets Flash Cannon, but I definitely know it has at least Iron Head. It's going to do a lot.
Yeah. It's you know, this team definitely has an identity of being defensive. So I understand the Guja Terra because he wants to keep that up. When you're Steel Dragon type, which resists really like a lot of things on the team, when you can make it to it can resist even more to specifically to your matchup, it's really scary. But yeah, overall, I think this team is really scary, extremely hard to prep for, and hard to break overall. It's
Uh,
it. This team does what the other team, with the Dondozo and Bronzong and Blissey and such. This team has tanks that have recovery, and I think that's the biggest difference here. Toxapex Garganol have recovery and regenerator. Florges is a wish passer to the Gudra, and like they are a lot more synergistic than the previous tanky team does.
I think I think Serena's just such a reliable rapid spin too. I know, and
True.
the magic bounce also helps with this. So I think this team's good. I'm really interested to see how this one does. in comparison to the other bulky team. I mean, we could get this completely wrong, and this team could be 0-3, and the other team
Yeah,
could
yeah,
be
true.
3
We
and
did
zero.
not look at standings at all. I don't even know if they're updated, but we did not look at
Yeah.
them all. So if the first place team is 0-3, that's not our fault. That's because they are just bad. So
We're really bad at rating teams.
or we're just that bad at rating teams.
Uh,
But
let's I think from the next couple on are kind of all like another level of scary. I think
yeah,
for the next
these
couple
next
here.
few are the top of the top for a reason. So let's start with DJS, the man, the myth, the legend, the tentacle pirates. And my goodness, like
Yeah.
Lilligant, Hisuian, and Volcarona, the Quiver. This team is literally just Quiver Dance Central. It's got a special variant. It's got a physical variant that can Terra. It's got a breaker in Usaluna, and then it's just got reliable mods to cover up with it. Torn is still reliable, even though it lost some stuff. Yuxi is really hard to break, especially with its new signature move, which is basically Torch Song but neutered. What Torch Song should have been if it wanted to be balanced. That's what Yuxi's got. Bisharp with Eviolite and Defiant is just annoying. Craggle is still a good special wall and can still rapid spin. Dancy's still a thing. Haxorus still hits hard. Quillfish is good. Mischievous probably never comes, but it's nice to have a ghost type in case you need it. But yeah, you can go ahead and talk now. Like this team is
Yeah, I think
just
I mean
well balanced.
I'm a huge Ursaluna fan. I think it's really fun in draft to use. It's you can probably get away without running many attack EVs and make it bulkier, and just with guts, it just absolutely crushes mons. It's got great coverage. The rest sleep talk set is also really good. I
Oh yeah,
think
with guts,
Joe,
right?
yeah,
That's funny.
I think Jode is crazy for having Lilligant Hisui possible as a Terra. I think one Revelation Dance, and
And
I
Terra
mean,
anything. Yeah.
you don't have to run Hustle. I mean, if you really don't want to miss the risk or the risk the miss. I mean, if you really are worried about it, you can run Wide Lens or whatever the item is still, and I think it's terrifying at 10 points. Torn got absolutely kind of crushed, but on this team, I still think it's pretty useful as it's kind of the non-setup special threat. Volcarona obviously can be. You can just run it specs, or if you really wanted to, but it's probably looking to set up with boots. And then from there, I think Eviolite Bisharp is really scary and hits for so hard. And then Deontay getting spikes, I think, was a nice boost. And then obviously, I think Haxorus is always something you have to prep for. If you don't prep for a D dance, and it can pretty much run right through you.
Haxorus, I think,
I
is definitely a sleeper on this team because like this team has a lot of setup, right? Like this team
oh
is
yeah,
probably the most scary because of its setup. But like I think like of its like mons, like Haxorus is probably the one you forget about. Like it's just kind of down there. You're like, oh yeah, you just have a Haxorus.
I think the Uxie gets Trick Room, doesn't it?
It does.
Uxie is fat, is a big mon. I mean, it's tiny, but you could Trick Room U-turn into Ursaluna, and I mean, he's taking at least one mon with him. So I think I think there's a lot of ways to play this team. So I'm really, and DJS is, I think, pretty good. So I think this will be a good team to look out for.
Yeah, yeah. I most certainly agree with that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, honestly, that's really all. Um, Going on to our next pick, we have. I think this is third place. You could remind me if I'm not.
It's
If I'm
fourth.
mistaken, it's fourth. All right. So fourth place, we have Periac with the totally deer team. With it's definitely a deer. Definitely not a weasel. Not at all. But so when we're looking at this team, just pretend that Trio and Quilladin are just not there. Just pretend they're not there, and look at the other 9 Pokemon. And this team is extremely threatening.
Yeah, Tox is one of the premier Terror captains with Lilligant, I think, and maybe Arcanine at that 10-point range. No one wants to take that Boom Burst. The Fairy Dragon Steel Core is, yeah, the best.
Yeah,
I don't think
like this Dragapult,
I.
Anatomerus, and Heatran, like it's that is consistently off like pressure, both defensively and offensively. Like Enamorus is like decently bulky. Like it hits really hard both offensively and defensively. It just gets a free bulk up every time it clicks superpower. Uh, and like you actually don't want to click defog because then you can't fucking hit him. Like
Yeah, I mean
contrary
it.
is the only way to erase your evasionness in draft leagues, because you can't really stop that. So like you have to be careful. This team doesn't have a lot of hazard pressure, which I think was a bit of an oversight with a contrary mon. But like if it got a contrary and defiant mon, this team would have been like just run hazards every day, and every time they defog, you just switch into an Amorous for free. But like this team is just so scary. Like it takes hits all day. Vaporeon heals anybody that needs it, and then like what do you do? Like really, what do you do? I don't
It's.
know.
I mean it's good. I think Flamigo is a budget Gapdos, but
Yeah,
still useful. I mean it's a really good choice Scarfmon or Band. Zoro Kusui is shenanigans, but I mean amazing typing. Obviously in such a threat offensively. So I mean this is a good team. It's
it's
got good
such a
removal.
good team.
Donphan is incredibly reliable, but that's also the only other real issue is really the Donphan's the removal. But you know Donphan is a pretty safe rapid spinner.
Yeah, with Donovan being the only removal, and you're never really running T Spikes Tostricity, and Quilladin should never come to a game, so you don't really have Spikes support. This team should drop Wugtrio and Quilladin. You got 2 more points anyway. You got 5 points if you do that. Just pick up a mon that's got Spikes or T Spikes, right? Or like that's really all you need. Just get someone else that you could bring for hazards, because you're not bringing the other two. If you're lucky, or if there's not a mon that's available, maybe even try to fit something in that speed tiers, because Trio was literally only picked so that he could technically say that he doesn't have a 40 gap in speed tier, but he still does because Trio does not show up to a match.
No,
You're not fooling nobody.
no.
But yeah, so this was our fourth place. But like, this is like just think in terms of draft. If this was fourth place, what in the world did the top three get away with? Well,
Murder, murder. That's what we
yeah,
got away
murder
with.
for sure. So let's start with our third place, and that being Cats Roll the Dumb. Cats Roll, funny enough, having to do with me, Cats Roll was originally in Kanto, uh, because Joe just straight up forgot that I got second place in the season, and a little bit of backstory for those who care, just real quick. I just asked, I DM'd him, and I was like, "Yo, uh, did I do anything wrong or anything like that?" Because I was curious why originally I didn't get into Kanto like at all. I was still in Johto after getting second place the season, and Joe straight up messaged me. He's like, "Oh, I just forgot." He's messaged people around. Catsroll is someone else who also got promoted through Johto. Ended up asking if they would switch with me. I did not ask for that. I was just wanting to know if I did something wrong. But ended up getting switched through. And Cats coming down here, showing that at least in draft skills, they should be back in Kanto. Because goodness gracious, is this team scary.
Yeah, it's almost as scary as this logo, but it's good. I don't know if there was a trade or anything, but somehow Dragonite fell all the way to like your
Yeah, I
eighth
don't
pick.
understand how Dragonite got to like I
That's his
get
eighth
it's a
pick.
little expensive at 14 without Terra. Like I guess it's not as premier. Like it doesn't get defog. It doesn't to get Terra extreme speed, but it is still multi-scale and it still has coverage off the wazoo.
I mean, it's still a really good mon. I think 14's pretty good for it without the Terra. I mean,
Agreed.
the first what is this 8 mons on this list are you have to prep for every week. Could come and win a game on its own, and then Cloth is a great design mon, hilarious.
Very funny.
I
Yeah.
guess if you aren't really ready, I guess it could beat you with the shell armor, anger shell armor, whichever one it is. You could lose, and then Spide Ops at 3 points, getting the hazards and the webs is great. I think webs on this team, like we mentioned, is pretty dangerous with some of
Yeah.
the mons. You could add a
This.
lot
Yeah.
more bulk to Spectrier. You could add more bulk to Sandy Shocks, Talonflame. I don't even the dancing bird. I don't know how to pronounce
Yeah.
Quackball.
Yeah. It's Quackleval. Yeah, you got it.
I mean, yeah, you could add a lot of bulk and make these mons a lot tougher to bring down.
Yeah.
I think Screamtail's, in my opinion, the premier wish passer
I
in
would
this
agree with you.
gen.
Like it is the bulkiest speed paster while also being so fast. Like yeah, this mon doesn't hit you with anything, but with a 111 Encore and Thunder Wave, good luck trying to take advantage of this mon's no offensive pressure. And if it really wants to, it could just start setting up on you with Calm Mind, and you're just like, oh wait, this mon will eventually start hitting hard. It's just it's got a bunch of coverage, so in a world with 4 times weakness mons, it could still hit you hard enough to be worth it. Um, it's yeah, it's a great mon, uh, and this team is just really scary. Um,
Yeah, I think the Terra Captain and Dunsparce is funny.
oh
I
yeah,
don't think
I think it's really funny. I mean,
I don't think Go-Goat's ever gonna be Terra, but
it's
Dunsparce is,
not, but
Calm Mind, Boom Burst, or Coil Glare, Body
yeah.
Slam. Terra could be really frustrating to
Yeah,
deal
and then
with.
just being able to change type also just defensively with its stats, it's just really good just overall as well. It's also gets roost, so it still has recovery in all of this. And like of all the mods to keep roosts, this mon kept it, which I
Got
just don't.
wings. It's got wings. What are you talking
It
about?
does not have wings.
Those are wings.
Those are not
Those are
wings.
wings.
Those are
Someone,
props. It
someone get a
pretends are
poll. Someone get a
wings.
poll in the chat. Does he have wings?
These are
I
fake
mean, yeah.
wings.
I think Sandy Shocks, aka Legnaton, is a really good budget pick too in the middle here. I mean, I think Rakia just did a great job on those middle picks here to really fill out the team. So
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, I get the Go-Goat answer. I mean, it's just because you needed a Go-Goat and Spite Ops are literally just to have grass type answers that aren't flying types, and
yeah,
they're good enough.
the ground resist. Yeah, I mean, Spide Ops is it'll. I bet it comes to more games than people think, but it's probably like two. I think 2 games would be more than most people think it would actually come to.
Yeah,
So
hazards
this
plus
is
circle throughout.
good.
It's good enough.
All right,
All
down to the top
right.
two.
Up to the top two. All right. At number two, we have I do believe this is still the case. One of Johto's own premier mods, not a doc, with the Milwaukee Miss Maggie's team. Oh man, I love this team. Like so, Great Tusk and Iron Moth, so scary together. Easily the best breakers in their roles for like in this type of environment. Like they're easily top 3 in the roles. Like it's just really really nice. Um, Getting like Rotom Wash to facilitate them is also really nice. Zaruto is a really good pivot and cover the weaknesses pretty well. Even Magnezone to help with the flying type and just being a more bulkier version of an electric type. Just like overall. And then you have Bravery, Hisuian with Terra, and it is so tanky with Tinted Lens and a speed boost with Esper Wing. It is so hard to break this mon. It's got roosts. It gets tanky. It does whatever the fuck it wants, and it is so hard to break it because you can't just resist it. You literally have to 4 times resist, which he drafted one of the only flying type 4 times resists in the game of Magnezone. So the only other option you got is just hoping to dear God that you can kill it before it sets up. That's not really an option.
I think it's a good team. The Tusk being the main sorcerer removal, but at 87 speed, letting it click a free rapid spin and getting the speed boost is not recommended. I mean that kind of turns that mon into a much more dangerous piece. Just a simple 1.5 boost.
And with
I mean
knockoff, it's not like it's really going to be uh, threatened by ghost types that often because it just clicks knockoff on the switch and then it rapid spins.
I mean, there aren't many ghosts. I mean, you think about the main ghosts. You think what? We're thinking Goldango and Gengar. Neither are taking
Neither can
a
take
headlong rush.
knockoff or headlong rush. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it's great. I mean, Iron Moth is just fantastic at the 110 speed
so
and
much
the
coverage too.
140.
It's got both
Yeah.
grass and electric coverage. So
Oh.
it's one of the rare fire types that gets both, and that's just like crazy. And like,
I
so, why?
Yeah, the speed is the only thing. Nothing above 110, I think, can be a little tricky, but you do have some really great scarf options in Zarude and Rotom Wash. If you really wanted to, you could scarf Iron Moth. I
Yeah,
probably
scarf.
wouldn't, but you could.
Yeah, but you
And then
definitely could.
Meloetta, I think, is like a decent fill-in piece here with the normal eliminating that psychic or the ghost weakness. Could be a decent amount, especially if you want to go something kind of crazy and get the pirouette form, which I think is really fast. So there's some options. Obviously, getting a Zoomerl seemed to went late in everybody's draft, but it kind of works on this team as the fairy.
It also
They probably
gives
didn't.
it also gives you some needed priority on this team, which
Yeah.
this team didn't really have. It's also something about setup on this team, which it also Bravery is kind of the only setup, so it's nice to have more with a zoom roll. And
Are you forgetting Nasty Plot Rotom Wash? Come on,
I
bulk up
mean,
Zarude.
I mean,
They don't usually fill those roles, but yes, there are other options. I mean, yeah, and Meloetta I think I would assume has Calm
it's
Mind.
kind
But
of like Calm Mind, but like
yeah,
still, you always have to prep for belly drum, like
uh,
a zoom roll. Like it's something you got to prep for. It's also like Azumarill I've noticed is in this weird place where in draft specifically, Azumarill is one of the only mons that I think it's the only mon that can defensively check both Chi Yu and Iron Bundle because of its Water Fairy Thick Fat. It is the only
yeah,
mon that can actually check both, which is nice.
yeah. Wait till they give Chi Energy Ball next gen,
God,
or
please
in the
don't,
or if
please
they give
don't.
it that in the DLC where it'll be quick
Ugh,
banned.
it's already banned.
All
uh,
right, on
and the
to number
last
one,
number
which
one
leaves us
team
with
is
Delp.
Delp with the most like standard ass name of the Southern Sandslash. But God, every mon in this team is just good at its role. Like there is nothing on this team that I am disappointed bringing to a match, and Iron Thorns is a really reliable Terra user as well with Dragon Dance. Dragon Dance Terra Flying is like its premier thing. Um,
You're forgetting what he. I saw. I actually watched the replay. I
oh,
know he
the
hit.
pin missile one, yeah,
Yeah, he hit the Terra loaded dice bug.
God,
I
yeah,
mean, it's
the
a.
loaded dice
I
with
think
Rock
that's.
Blast and Pin Missile, yeah, that's another
Yeah, I
thing.
think that's a really good set. I think Slitherwing is a nightmare to prepare for
It
with
really
the.
is. First impression and
What
U
is it?
turn.
It's let's see. What is it? 130,
135
135. First impression is just
is
so tough.
nutty. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think this team's great. Every single mon, barring maybe
Yeah. Which
Delphox.
let's just also talk about the fact that Slitherwing gets Will-O-Wisp. Like,
Oh,
what in the world does a bug fighting type get a Will-O-Wisp? Like, I get it, it's Volcarona, but like, still having a physical wall with Will-O-Wisp. How in the
it's good.
world do you break that now?
It's good. I think I one of these days I want to see a Sun team with Slitherwing and then click the Flame Charge and then Flare Blitz. I
Yeah.
want it could, under the sun, at least the Flame Charge will actually do something. But I
Yeah.
mean, Slowbro losing teleport is
Is
a
rough,
bummer, but
but
we dropped it in points, but it's still so good. I mean, it's
yeah, I mean,
still
it's still a reliable water type, but it's still a regenerator mon, and it's still a
yep,
body press physical defensive mon. It's still gonna be a pain to break.
yep.
This team does have a weird identity where it almost wants to bring all of its mons every week, which I think is a unique problem to have. when you
It's a
have
great
when
problem to have. It's the
yeah
whole point of
it's
draft.
I mean it is a good problem to have. I would rather that than not wanting to bring than not having enough mons to bring, but it
Right.
does mean that every week you do have to sacrifice something. And this team is not without flaws of any kind. Specifically, this team is pretty rock weak. Iron Thorns or Iron Treads is literally its only resists. It is 4 times resist, so it does it well, but it's really only it's only switching. Um, it's also Slithering is pretty much the only defensive switch into ground types. Uh, um, Meowscarada isn't really tanky enough for that to be worthwhile, and Bravery does not come to most games. It is its only defogger. I do think Bravery kept defog. I actually don't know.
It does.
Okay,
It
it,
does.
it, it did keep defog,
Pretty sure.
but
Yeah, it's a. I
you
mean,
know,
it's a great team.
yeah,
You
it's
have
still a great team.
your hazards are easy to set on anything. The Meowscarada is pretty fast at 123.
It hits pretty
You can.
hard with a.
Oh
I think
yeah,
it's
flower trick is
105
rough.
base power because of crit, right? It's 105, I think.
I think it's 70 and a crit. Yeah, so it's 105
Yeah, it's
or something
105.
like that. But it's. I mean, it's a strong one. It's a really good. It's a great knock user.
Yeah,
A
knock,
great U-turn
U-turn.
spam.
Yeah, like it's can get rid of its weaknesses as well. I think it gets sucker punch as well, so like it even gets like more priority.
Right.
It's just this team just is really hard to prep for. I think
Um,
this team is just the best at forcing prep for everything. Like you can't prep
yeah,
for everything. Like I don't think there's a single team here that can just magically prep for everything. But I do think uh, this team is its only limits is what Delp preps in his games. But on that, I think this is it. Is there any other notes or anything that you want to mention before we end here, Helix?
no, I think we're good.
All right. Well, in that case, thank you for joining me for PRs, and thank you all for watching. Like I said before, I'm not sure if we're gonna do Kanto, but if we do, we'll let you know. And this has been Didier and Helix for the Johto PRs. Talk to y'all later.
Adios, boys.
Adios.